Hello, to this video on AI and copyright, the intersections of training data, AI outputs, and associated lawsuits. This video will be approximately 10 minutes long and includes information that I presented at Texas Library Association in spring 2024. So we are going to talk about how copyrighted works are used in training data, how copyrighted works are reproduced by these large language models, the associated lawsuits that people are relying on, and we'll discuss some concepts related to the commodification of information. But the question first we have to deal with is how we got here. And so there are several lawsuits that are brought by this man. His name is Stephen Thaler, and his DABUS system. Thaler developed DABUS, which stands for the Device for the Autonomous Bootstrapping of Unified Sentience, and insists that it created a new beverage holder and emergency light by itself. He also insists that it created its own art here in this photo on this slide. He had some early successes in getting patents granted in Australia and the United Kingdom and South Africa during 2018 and 2019. However, many of those courts, plus the European Union, have stated that DABUS cannot hold patents or copyright itself because it's not a natural person. So according to the United Kingdom court in 2023, the court holds that the ownership of the machine did not fall within the limbs of Section 72B or 72C, which provide an exhausted list of persons entitled to patent ownership where they are not inventors themselves. So those of us who work for a place like Texas Tech know that if we were to create something here, Texas Tech would share the patent with us. There's also no basis for applying the doctrine of accession, that the owner of the existing property then also owns the new property produced by the existing property to these circumstances, as this invention is not a tangible property to which title can pass from the owner of the machine that created it. And so again, this sounds a little complicated. It is, in law speak. However, this explains why in the previous video, the U.S. Copyright Office has decided to go with information about AI-generated content as it's not being created by a human person, therefore cannot hold copyright. And this is what this district court said in 2023 as well. Only works with human authors can receive these copyrights. In April of 2023, Stephen Thaler tried to get the Supreme Court of the United States to listen to his case. However, they declined to hear that challenge. In that lower court, again, patents can be issued only to human inventors, and his AI system cannot be considered the legal creator of the inventions that he has said it created on its own. So his lawsuits are part of what is happening. The other part of what is happening is how these AI systems are getting training data and then using it to produce their models and their model outputs. So in the book Unmasking AI by Joy Buolamwini, she discusses how computer scientists view data harvesting. And for computer scientists, particularly one who works for a university, if the information is out there, it's considered to be used under fair use. This might also include personally identifying information. If you, the person writing on your Twitter threads, don't, agree to have your data being harvested, it will get harvested anyway, right? Many of these companies, Meta, right, which includes Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, they are mining your data to train models. And she says that we need to move from this free-for-all system to an opt-in system. And again, I highly recommend this book. But because these systems are able to use this information in fair use, and we're going to talk a moment here about fair use. So the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies or phonorecords, or by any other means specified by that particular section for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, which includes multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, and research, is not considered an infringement on copyright. So the fair use of a copyrighted work allows us in the university to be able to make copies of PDFs or of research articles up to a certain point for our classes. We can also make copies of books and book chapters, but again, there's like a percentage there, and it's really just, you can't copy the whole book. You can copy parts of it and you can use it in your classes. The problem with these AI models is that they're copying entire databases worth of this work in order to create their models. And second side note here is about who owns your data, right? So all of this data that is online, none of us own it. It's owned by the companies that we are inputting this data into. So Tumblr and WordPress are also selling user data to train AI tools. The University of Michigan sold old student data from the 80s and 90s to train AIs. They ended up walking this back, which is good because students do deserve privacy. It doesn't matter how long ago you went to that university. It doesn't matter when that happened. Your data should not be added to these systems in this manner. So the next question is, why are the companies doing this? They are taking all this data because they say it can make their models better, but really it's just about profit. And they would like to make profit off of your data. The first lawsuit related to that is the Authors Guild versus Google Inc. This was a 10-year copyright lawsuit that happened between the years of 2005 and 2015. And it basically came down to the fair use in copyright and transformative printed materials being turned into a searchable database through scanning and digitization. The Authors Guild sued Google because they did not feel that these works, any works, should be scanned in this manner because Google did not hold the copyright of them. However, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals upheld in the district court's judgment in October of 2015, ruling that the Google project provided a public service without violating intellectual property law. And then the U.S. Supreme Court denied a petition to hear the case. So many of these lawsuits going forward now, which will impact copyright law and these AI systems, may come down to this. The current lawsuits include this one from Anderson versus Stability AI and Getty Images versus Stability AI. And they argue that the legal system is asked to clarify the bounds of what derivative works are under these intellectual property laws. So both of these people, and Anderson is an author, so Sarah Anderson has had her work stolen by these systems, particularly Stability AI, in order to train the system. However, if I go to Stability AI and I ask it to create comics in the mode of Sarah Anderson, it can do that, and it can do that in a bunch of horrific ways. So I personally think it would be unethical to do that. However, people seem to like to do it for other reasons. So she's arguing in court that she has had a direct copyright infringement, and she has many other authors and artists standing up with her on this. Getty itself has had more than 12 million images stolen, as well as their captions and any associated metadata, which was used to train both Stable Diffusion and Dream Studio. Just an update on that Stability AI Midjourney case from Sarah Anderson. The judge did rule that these companies should face the artist's copyright case in this manner. So they will be going through with the court lawsuits. And like I mentioned, this becomes problematic because if your art has been stolen by an AI system in order to train that system, then you can produce copyrighted materials with that system. And so There was a study done by this group known as Patronus AI, which tested OpenAI's GPT-4, Anthropic's Claude, Meta's Llama, and Mistral's AI's Mixtral. And they asked these models to generate text from copyrighted works. Now, OpenAI's GPT-4 was able to produce them 44% of the time, so technically that was the worst way they could go. Further in this study, they talk about the different kinds of prompts that they used. They only tested models using the books which were under copyright protection in the US. They chose popular titles from Goodreads. They devised 100 different prompts which would ask, for instance, what's the first passage of Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn? And they also asked the models to complete text of certain book titles like Michelle Obama's Becoming. And all of these models did indeed produce copyrighted materials when asked to do so. Microsoft Copilot has problems with violent sexual images as well as ignoring copyright. And Google Image has had issues for quite some time. So earlier this year, in 2024, Google Gemini took down its image producer because it was producing biased images. However, these issues are baked into these models. This has been a known problem for Google for about 8 years. Again, going back to Joy Buolamwini and her book, she talks about some of this in that book, but she also came out in 2018 with this video called AI Ain't I a Woman? I have linked to that in this resources folder here on the side for you. It's a 3-minute video, but it discusses how these images are being tagged within Google systems, within IBM's systems, with a few other systems as well. Because the metadata behind these images is tagged in certain ways, when it asked to identify the image of Sojourner Truth, for example, it said that she was a gentleman at 74%. And so this is a problem in a few different ways. And as I discussed in the biased issue module, I could talk for a long time about this and how these systems are built in this manner. And there aren't really good guardrails that you can place on them because, again, these things are not search engines. These are generative models and not necessarily what we think they should be. So this video, we discussed how AI lawsuits impact copyright law, how these companies are trying to use fair use as a way to skirt copyright law, steal artists' works to generate new work. It might fall under transformative works, however, no artist has consented to the use of their materials in this way. And then that there are problems with several of the popular AI models which reproduce these copyrighted materials.